Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Welcome to episode 6 of Smallville, the saviour of Superman. And today we're talking about reboots or relaunches. What would you like? In a fantasy world, it's not happening, by the way. We know that Erica and Tom are going to be in Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is part of the Arrowverse crossover. But this is fantasy world. As one YouTuber says, Chris Wong Spencer, we're putting the tinfoil hat so anything goes. So what would you rather have? A Smallville reboot in a perfect world or a Smallville relaunch? So your option would be, the relaunch would be a Metropolis spin-off TV show, Thomas Superman, all the characters from Smallville being involved, and with that iconic history of the show being able to be used in all the episodes and seasons of the Metropolis show. Or a brand new take, brand new actors, a relaunch. I will talk to you about my idea I had a few years ago for a Smallville reboot. We'll do that later. But this got my thinking going after I read an article by saviour.com. It's time for a Smallville TV reboot. Do you agree with that? Let's give this a read. As we approach the 18th anniversary, wow, I didn't even know that till I read this the other day, of the debut of Smallville, the 18th anniversary debut of Smallville. What was that? October 2001, was it? Wow, I'm going to be celebrating. I'll be rewatching it. Shame we can't do it here, but copyright and all that. Anyway. As we approach the 18th anniversary debut of Smallville, the Superman prequel is arguably more popular than ever. It is because it's timeless. With fans celebrating the announcement last week that stars Tom Welling and Erica Durance will reprise their roles as Clark Kent and Lois Lane in the Arrowverse crossover Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's a clever bit of fan service for those who have clamoured to see some sort of television revival. Virtually since the series ended in 2011 after 10 seasons. However, while this will no doubt renew calls for the fabled 11th season, what we really need isn't a continuation of Smallville, but instead a reboot. Now that is controversial, my friend, but we go on. At the time of its premiere in October 2011, No, you got that wrong. It finished in 2011, right? So let's start again. Let me correct them. At the time of its premiere in October 2001, Smallville tapped into an important niche market. Superman lost his grip on over the decades. Younger and more importantly female fans, the primary demographic appeal of Superman had long been boys and men. But 1993's Lois and Clark, The Adventures of Superman, demonstrated the potential for the character's broader appeal, particularly when proper attention was devoted to his female supporting cast. By the way, I didn't like the Lois and Clark show, and I never will, so that's the end of it. So let's carry on. Smallville continued that success by turning up the dial on the interpersonal drama. By the way, that didn't just attract women and young girls. It attracted everyone because we love Superman, and it was a fantastic take. Anyway, Smallville continued that success by turning up the dial of the interpersonal drama. The Betty and Veronica style love triangle involving Clark Kent, Lana Lang and Chloe Sullivan. Was there a love triangle between Chloe and Lana and Clark? Only in Chloe's imagination, I think. Anyway, offered a classic dramatic device for making fans take sides in the protagonists. Do you know what? I never really took sides. It wasn't really the character dynamics I was more interested in. It was all about Clark and his family, his dad, his mum, Lex, Lionel, and all that. I loved Lana, Chloe, and all of that, but it wasn't my predominant reason for watching the show. Further irony of knowing that Lois Lane, the true love of Superman's life, would eventually show up, only added another layer. Well, we didn't actually know that at the time, did we? The series used that to its advantage, and for all 10 seasons, mined the tension between what could happen and what diehard fans knew would occur. Why is this article focusing so much on the romantic element? Oh, God. Anyway, we read on. That's much the same formula that has fueled most of the superhero dramas that follow. No. Action set pieces and the continuing discovery of powers are typically a given, But by focusing first and foremost on telling a human story rather than superhuman story, Warner Brothers found a combination that not only worked, but worked for virtually everyone. By making the comic book characters feel as the more real and tangible show, held onto teenage audiences that are often looking to distance themselves from childhood interests. What a reboot would offer is a chance to do that for a new generation, to update the stories and settings the show featured, and a chance to repeat the success all over again with a new twist. That's not to say that Junior hasn't evolved in a lot of ways since Smallville concluded in 2011. Has it evolved? But has it evolved? The technical advancements and studio's willingness to dole out higher budgets mean the special effects for a new Smallville would be better than ever. Where it's Clark's powers, those are his villains, or the action set pieces. There is no doubt they could tell a more ambitious story. That's true, but the point of Smallville was, it was ambitious. Yeah, if you go back to some of the early season effects, they may look a bit dated, but the point is, back then, the special effects from Entity Effects, who did a fabulous job from beginning to end of Smallville's run, was ambitious at the time, and they still had those beautiful human story character dynamics. It had everything, and that's why it worked. But I'm not against a reboot or a revival, by the way, because how could I be? I'm obsessed with Smallville. What advanced even faster than technology, perhaps, is the culture. Smallville debuted before even the first Spider-Man film was released, and concluded before the Avengers arrived in 2012. Since then, superheroes have filled the screen large and small, mostly thanks to Smallville, by the way. Part of what always held Smallville back was its reluctance to embrace the trappings of superhero storytelling. Right, I'm going to stop you there, CBR.com, for just 1 minute. Let's get this absolutely clear. They did tell superhero stories, and they told interpersonal stories. They did it all. Clark fought Doomsday, Zod, Darkseid, Brainiac. What other superhero stories do you want? Totally wrong. And this was to Smallville's strength. Anyway, the show's developers were famously guided by the mantra, no tights, no flights. But he still flew sometimes. He always used his powers from the pilot. So even though he wasn't wearing the tights and the flights, because he wasn't Superman yet, because it's a pre-Superman story, hello, it was still awesome. And he still had the spirit of Superman. And really, that's all what matters, really. Which kept Clark out of the costume and away from the clouds for most of its run. Even when other superheroes became more commonplace on the series. They often wore colourful street clothes and hoodies, a lot of the hoodies that came close to being a costume without ever crossing the line, because it was a pre-superhero story. Don't you get it? And bashfulness over tights is out the window by 2019. Audiences are also accustomed to superhero tropes, that nobody bats an eye when a hero leaps into action, and leather or spandex, and a Smallville reboot could easily embrace those aspects of the source material wholeheartedly. If you do a Smallville reboot, you're obviously going to be telling the pre-Superman story again, so you wouldn't be doing those things. It would be stupid. It's a pre-Superman world, don't you understand? Anyway, Airboot even has options. A reboot always has options when it comes to what form the series could take and where it might appear. Although Arrow will conclude with this season, the CW has no shortage of superhero programming, from the established Arrowverse dramas to Black Lightning, newcomer Batwoman. However, the network is not even Smallville's only option. The streaming service DC Universe clamours for new content and has already found success with Doom Patrol and Titans. Yeah, they're doing a great job over there. Callbacks to the original series or casting the original actors in the guest roles would be a great nostalgic fix. I absolutely agree. The original show received a satisfactory ending. Well, anyway, whether in its 10th and final season on air or in the comic book continuation Smallville Season 11. But there's so much that could be done to reinvigorate that well. And so much a reboot could try that the original never had the opportunity to do. So what do we think? Smallville reboot or a Metropolis spin-off? I want you to comment down below. Find me over on Twitter at MoviesTVMad and let me know. Reboot or continue? Right. Now, a few years ago, now first of all, I'm going to repeat myself here. A Smallville reboot wouldn't bring in the flights and the tights. It wouldn't. It couldn't. It would be stupid. You'd still have to say that pre-Superman world story. Maybe maybe Clark could meet other people. I mean, I'll tell you about my reboot idea, and you could do some interesting things. And it's obviously a little bit more ambitious what we saw in the decade of Smallville. Not that that matters, because Smallville was Smallville, and it worked for what it was. So anyway, this is my idea for a reboot of Smallville. I came up with it. I never wrote any of it. It's all in my head. So it's called Smallville Metropolis, right? So the idea is that Brainiac's skull ship crashes in Smallville, right? And all of a sudden, as this ship, and we all know whose ship it is, but obviously in the world they don't. So as soon as this ship crash lands, these weird, strange, mysterious, dirty, metal-looking walls rise up, blocking all the entrances and exits of the towns. Hundreds and hundreds of Kryptonians run out of the skull ship, and that is where a single Jonathan Kent discovers Kal-El. He's not the last son of Krypton, obviously, because all these Kryptonians come out and they go and scatter and hide in the mountain range of Smallville. Let's say that Smallville's got lots of mountains this time. It is in Canada after all, right? So they all scatter and hide and make that their own. But Jonathan, he picks up this baby. He sees him crying on this ship, picks him up, and he takes him on his own. So why is Jonathan Kent single? Well, the point here is that a few years back, Martha Kent had mental health problems, and she was actually committed to Arkham Asylum, which we would reference, and we would see her at a later date. And so basically, also amongst these Kryptonians are Zod, Jor-El, Lara, and we're going to see their story and how that would work with them. But the thing is, Brainiac isn't on the skull ship. Where is he? Is he part of it? Is he the one who made these mysterious walls, like block the entrances and exits of the town? That is just the first part of my concept. The other part is that we would have lost type, not backflashes, but flash forwards to Superman's era in Metropolis. So the whole point would be we would be having flash forwards, so each episode would echo the kind of narrative we were talking about. And the challenges that Clark's facing in that episode in Smallville, he'd be kind of facing those themes in the flash forward to his future in Metropolis. So the whole point in Metropolis is there's already a Justice League, but there's some kind of apocalyptic event, so which I call the Doomsday Apocalypse. So what happens is, instead of becoming zombies, when people die, they become doomsday creatures. So the Justice League and other heroes and law enforcement are up against it. There's a post-apocalyptic war against these doomsday creatures, and all you have to do is die to become one. So it's a very dark world. So every episode we flash forward to that story and flash back to the ordinary events going on in Smallville, with everyone being trapped in this town with this kind of skull-shaped ship like landed there, and everyone's trying to investigate. Now that is my concept. I think it's a very different concept. I think we'd still have the charm. We could still use the charm and the relationship between Clark and Jonathan. I would have some interesting things to do. And obviously, in terms of Lex Luthor, he would absolutely be on this show. You can't have a Smallville show without Lex Luthor. I would focus more on Lillian at first than Lionel, because we didn't really see Lillian that much. So this time, Lex's twisted dynamic is going to be with Lillian Luthor, but he grew up with a sister called Tess. And I think that could work kind of interesting. And at a later date, maybe in the second season, we would bring Lionel into it just to stir things up. What kind of character he would be? Would he be the same as John Glover's Lionel? I don't know yet. Some of the things are up in my head. But basically, that is the concept of my Smallville reboot. I think it will be excellent. I think it will be awesome. But of course, the most important people are my subscribers, the people watching right now. Comment down below if you think it's a shit idea. Just tell me. Now, obviously, that's one thought, a reboot, but obviously what most Smallville fans have always wanted is a Metropolis spin-off, continuing from the history of Smallville. And that would be awesome. Of course, we've always had the issue of believing that Tom doesn't want to put on the costume. Now, we saw a picture of Tom and Erica yesterday on the Kent farm. Erica posted that. They looked amazing. It made me cry. It made me emotional. So I am looking forward to seeing them referenced in the Arrowverse. Now, someone did a video saying, because of that, now Smallville is part of Arrowverse. Never. Smallville was here first. Smallville is part of its own verse. Smallville, my friends, is part of the Smallville verse. And don't you forget it.